All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the 8th episode of Dual Universe Explorers. We are a group of players from the forums, Twitter, YouTube, etc. People who are just really interested and I would say devoted. I don't know, is devoted the right word? Really interested. Definitely devoted. Really interested in Dual Universe. And we come together every week to talk about Dual Universe, talk about the latest news, talk about pretty much anything related to Dual Universe, and almost everything not related to Dual Universe. This week, kind of a slow week, although there was a bit of exciting news, a cool new video that came out that we'll be showing here in a bit, showcasing a bit about the server technology. And I guess we do this intro every week, and yeah, I have it written down here in front of me, and I never seem to follow what the intro actually says. But just to wrap it up, I want to remind everybody once again that we are not employees of NovaCorp. We're not paid by NovaCorp. We're not affiliated with them. We do email them from time to time begging for more information, but we don't get anything more than you guys get. And with that, I'd like to bring in the real stars of the show. Wardian, Scruggs, Cayman, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, can hear you just fine.
Hi,
All right.
everybody.
There's just 4 of us on this week. There may be a few more stopping in later, so it's going to be somewhat of an unscripted show. Not a lot of, like I said, content to show.
Well,
although, depends on what you want to
Gamescom.
consider. Yeah.
So they're kind of busy.
Gamescom, as I discovered, was not necessarily a public, open to the public conference, or at least not where NovaCorp was.
I heard about that, and I was a little bit baffled by that. I suppose
So-
they just didn't have anything they could show people other than the videos that they'd previously made.
I don't know. Maybe it just maybe they weren't able to get the booth they wanted, but unfortunately they were only press only at Gamescom. However, I did get confirmation that at PAX it would be open to the public. So if you want to check out the game, definitely find some way of attending PAX. Which I went out of my way and I bought tickets to go to PAX, which is why in 2 weeks for episode 10, we will be pushing that off until Sunday, September 4th. We'll do a 4 p.m. broadcast just so that we can start to bring in more people from the EU to be able to watch the show.
You're gonna get.
Are you going to be back
to,
by then?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to Seattle. I don't know where you guys left off, but I'm going to Seattle. I bought tickets to PAX. The plane ticket was somewhat cheap, all things considered, and I am staying with a friend. So that's why my trip was so cheap. But yes, I do want to go meet JC, and I do want to see what they have there. I'm crossing my fingers. Maybe they have some sort of demo I can sit down in front of.
Yeah, that would be really awesome.
That would be even better if they let you actually record some of the demo.
Right?
Now, that I don't think is happening.
No, probably not.
Well, you never know. He's been pretty open with it so far. Wouldn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, not myself sitting down in front of the demo. I hope that everybody who goes to PAX is able to check out the game and, in front of them. But I do know that they said on Twitter that at PAX on September 2nd they would be announcing the Kickstarter start date. So that's some news.
Can't wait to give them all of my money.
They announced their plans to announce the announcement.
That doesn't sound, awful at all. What kind of planning is this? We're going to announce our plans to make the announcement. What?
No, I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for Kickstarter because I want to see what kind of prizes. Is it prizes? No, I guess rewards. Is rewards the term I should be using here? The rewards we get for backing them. I'm crossing my fingers that maybe we get some physical content, like a shirt.
You mean like a or a beanie or something?
Yeah, a beanie, a shirt, stickers. I want a 3D printed ship, a model of the Ark ship. That's what I would like.
Yeah, that would actually be really cool. I'm
That
like
would be epic.
sticker is not so great for me, but yeah, that Arc ship printed would be freaking phenomenal.
Well, if they don't make one, I will. Just for you.
I remember reading about on the forums. It wasn't a recent post, but I do remember reading something about like they were looking into people who were able to do 3D printing, talking about 3D printing things like ships from the game or the Ark ship, or I think they even mentioned the what's the name of the device that players have on their wrist?
Oh,
The nanoformer?
The nanoformer. I had heard rumor on the forums, or I thought I remember reading something about, they wanted to do something like that, like 3D printing the nanoformer, but, it all depends on the cost.
Well, that'd be great. I'd do it. It's just, I don't even know what the thing is supposed to look like.
Say,
I only know what half the Ark ship looks like, considering every shot I see of it, it's pounded inside the ground like a nail.
well, the nanoformer is like a big, expensive iWatch. Or just a
It's
normal
somehow-
iWatch.
And somehow connected to a belt.
I'm pretty sure that, if you read the lore, which I actually took the time to read the lore, which I had been putting off for a while, but if you read the lore, it talks about how the nanoformer works and how it, shrinks materials down to the nano level or nanoscale in order to be able to, pack them into their suit or their backpack. But they also require, a lot of power, which is why I think the suit is being worn.
Probably.
It's just one of those things where I look at it and it's like, wow, if you had that kind of technology, why do you even need spaceships?
Has anybody here actually read the lore other than me?
Yes.
Yes.
I've read quite a bit of it. I
My
like some of the ideas that I pop into my head just reading some stuff like the resurrection nodes.
They talked about I guess I'm kind of skipping over here a lot, just talking about this part of the lore. But at one point in the lore, there's a mention of airships and balloon ships. But it was weird to me because I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere else other than a dev blog.
Yeah, well, what's crazy too is because I had initially had a question about some of the things in the lore, like how they were saying you can shoot out a stream of sand type thing. One of the things, and they said that was basically, it's not going to be game accurate. It's just lore stuff, so it may not reflect gameplay.
They talked about needing to go into the woods to find fruit and seeds and these special, was it special seeds or something that provided the oil that they needed to power stuff?
Yeah.
I thought it was some sort of liquid.
Yeah, was it sap from the trees?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff in the lore that probably won't make it in.
Yeah.
But it's still cool. I mean, it just, it may not be something you want to look at and be like, oh my god, that's definitely going to be in that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I guess we can all talk about that after we get over the actual news that we have to show this week, which is very little, but still interesting stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put up the teaser video that came out this week. So,
is this the server tech demo?
Yes, this is the server tech teaser demo. The teaser of the demo. So, here we go.
It's so pretty.
Good stuff. Well, that's running on a loop back there. So before we actually get to the tech demo, which I presume everybody here has watched already,
Yeah, a couple times.
this video actually does have some stuff that you don't get to see in the tech demo. I probably watched this thing, 100 times, but the opening when you're going through the ships and the ships are all flying around, I wonder if those were actual. Was it scripted to do that, or were there actually devs in the office playing and doing those maneuvers with their ships?
I'm kind of hoping for the second one, but it might be the first.
I think it may be the first. But like he said, I'm hoping for the second. It's just they've already admitted that they're horrible pilots.
Well, they just flew straight, so I mean that couldn't have been that difficult. But
Okay, so teaser. I had to show it because it is content. But to actually get to the meat of the thing, I'm going to mute myself, and I'm just going to let the tech demo run here. So for everybody who is skipping ahead in YouTube and trying to get to the part of the show where we actually talk about something, this is the tech demo demonstrating how their multi-sharding, or how their single shard server technology works, and how they were able to dynamically take players and assign them to compute instances or a cluster of machines in order to do all the computation work to support that many players in one environment.
they explain it really well in the video.
Yep. So here we go.
Hello, this is JC from NovaQuark. Welcome to Dual Universe Dev Diary. This time we'll have a closer look at the server technology. As you know, Dual Universe is an upcoming sandbox sci-fi MMORPG which is focused on emergent gameplay and building. All this taking place in what we call a continuous single shard, which means that everybody is going to be playing in the same universe at the same time. One big server, no instances, no zones. Together you'll be free to create cities, spaceships, or giant orbital stations, as well as political, territorial, or social structures. Well, as you can imagine, this raises quite challenging technical questions. So let me show you exactly what this is about. This is a debug view of the server, showing the players connected to it as small white dots. You can see that the universe is dynamically partitioned into cubic cells, and as the players go closer to each other towards the center, the cells get smaller and smaller to maintain an average maximum number of players per cell and distribute the load. So you can think of each cell as being roughly like a particular machine on the server cluster. Now, let's have a look at how it shows inside the game. Here, we have a client connected to the server, and you can see all the players actually gathering to the center. Each player you see is an actual client that we fully simulate as to effectively test the load on the architecture. So they are real, and in particular they are all getting the updates about each other's position as they move. You can see in the upper left corner how the dynamic space splitting goes inside the server. The other important aspect is that the further away a player or an entity is, the less frequently it gets updated. Here you can see the name of the player is blinking every time there is an update. So as you can see, when we zoom, further away players are less frequently updated than those nearby. And the loss of update frequency is compensated by interpolation techniques. Now let's see how this looks like in a more realistic game situation. A bit more than 1,000 players have been spawned in a few hundred meters wide area, and they are moving around. Again, each of these players is a full-fledged simulated client. They actually see each other and can interact with each other and with me as a game client, as it would be in a real game world situation. You can see there's really a lot of players, maybe on screen perhaps a few hundreds. So more virtual clients means more server rented for testing, so we are currently limited in how far we can push this until we have actual players connected, but so far our models run as expected. The max distance at which we can see an entity depends on its size, so while we only see players here, keep in mind that the way things work extends to large-scale entities like ships that we can see from much further away. Here again we dynamically play with frequency to maintain a reasonable load. Now, if I get further away from the planet and activate this debug info, you can see the players as I get further away. Now we can see maybe 700s, 800s of them, and all of them are still moving in a fluid way. As you can see, we can have a very high density of players in a continuous single shard universe, and this allows us to build a truly massively multiplayer game where large-scale emergent interactions will be able to take place. Thanks for watching, and don't hesitate to visit us on our website, forum or dev blog for more information on this technology, and join the newsletter to get the latest news. See you soon in Dual Universe.
All right.
Hello, this is
I like
Jason
watching that
from
video.
Novak.
Probably
Welcome
just leave
to
it
Dual
on it.
Universe Dev Diary.
Usually just leave it on at work in
This
the
time,
background.
we'll have a
I
closer
do a
look at
lot
the
of stuff
server
like that
technology.
with DU videos.
As you know,
I just have
Dual
them
Universe
running in the
is
background while I do work.
sandbox, sci-fi,
Just make a
MMORPG,
playlist of all
which
the
is
DU
focused on
videos that have been
emerging gameplay
released,
and building.
put it on shuffle and
All
repeat.
this taking place
Pretty
in
much.
what we call a continuous
I've listened to that
chart,
Gray
which
Stills
means that
interview
everybody is going to be playing in the same universe
way
at the
too many
same
times.
time.
I transcribed
One big
it. It's like
server,
11,000
no
words.
instances, no zones.
Yeah.
Together you'll be free to create cities, spaceships, or giant orbital
You posted that on the
stations,
forums, didn't
as
you?
well as political.
Yeah, I posted a
territorial,
link to the
or social
transcription
structures.
in one of the threads.
Well, as you can
I might
imagine,
start
this
a
raises quite
I
challenging
might start a new
technical
thread
questions.
because
So
I'm keeping.
let me show you exactly what this is about.
What am I trying
This
to
is
say?
a debug view of the server.
I am
showing the
transcribing
players
all of the Dual
connected to
Universe
it
videos
as small white
that I've
box.
seen,
You can
that I know
see
are out
that
there,
the universe is
and then I'm putting them on
dynamically
GitHub,
partitioned into cubic cells.
and people can read them
And
if they
as the
want and
players go
fix them
closer
because
to
there's
each other
plenty of
towards
typos
the
in them.
center, the
And
cells
it's also
get
kind of hard to
smaller and smaller
understand
to
some of the
maintain an
accent
average
sometimes.
maximum number of players per
But,
cell
you know,
and distribute the load.
What can you do?
So you can think of each cell as being roughly like a particular machine.
So
on
yeah,
the server
you guys are
node.
quiet.
Now,
Yeah.
let's
I
have a
was
look
reading chat.
at how it
Someone
shows
saying, "Don't
inside
forget
the
about the
game.
confirmed jetpack."
Here we have a
Yes.
client connected to
I
the
saw
server,
that too.
and you can see all the players actually gathering to the center. Each player you see is
Yeah,
an
there's not a
actual
whole lot going
client
on this
that we
week,
fully
unfortunately. I
simulate as
mean,
to effectively test
Gamescom,
the
we were
load of the
hoping for a lot
architecture.
more
So
information.
they are real, and in particular, they are all getting the updates about each
Didn't
other's
really get
position
much.
as they move.
No, no.
You've seen the
It
players
was
calm
press
down
only.
and
I imagine
basically
either.
goes inside the server.
You know, I spent some time on Twitter, going through and looking
The
up Dual
other
Universe
important aspect is
posts,
that the
seeing where the
further
news was
away a
getting.
player or
There was
an
some
entity is, the less
Japanese
frequently it gets
articles about it.
Here you can
a lot
see
of
the
European
name of the player.
Articles, like
is,
some in
blinking,
German. I think I saw one in Italian
every time there
even.
is an update. So as you
But
can see,
not a
when
lot
you
of like
zoom,
excitement
further
from
away
those
players
places.
are less
They
frequently
seem to be
updated
mainly
than
like
those
blogs,
nearby.
gaming blogs, instead of
And the loss
big
of
sites like
update frequency
IGN or
is
PC Gamer or
compensated by
something.
interpolation techniques.
Yeah.
Now let's see how this
I think
looks
PAX
like
here in
a
2
more
weeks
realistic
will
game
get a
situation.
ton of news. At least hopefully
A bit more
excitement
than,
because players are
1,000
actually going to be
players
able to
has
see
been
it,
spawned in a
or
few hundred
normal
meters
people
wide
won't be able
area,
to see it.
and they are moving around. Again, each of these players
hope
is
so.
a full-fledged simulated client. They actually see each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
and
kind of
can
excited to
interact
see
with
what
each
kind of
other
information
and
comes
with
out
me as a
of
game
PAX.
client, as it would be in a real game world situation.
Yeah.
You can see
Hopefully,
there's
like at least
a
some
lot of
videos
players,
or something.
maybe on screen, perhaps.
Kind of hoping to see something else too.
Yeah.
So
You
more
wanna see
virtual
some alpha
clients
gameplay
means
footage?
more server rented.
Yeah,
for
something like
testing.
that.
So
I
we're
mean,
currently
maybe
limited in how far we can push
you
this
know, just
until we
some
have actual
like
players
what some
coming in.
initial
But so
gameplay
far, our
might look like.
models
Maybe the
run
first
as
5
expected.
minutes of just loading it up, not
The max
not
distance
already
is
having
what
a
you
ship,
can
not
see,
having
and it
anything. I mean,
depends
I'm
on
pretty
the
sure it would
player.
just
So
be like go out and
while
mine
we
some
only see
stuff.
players here, keep in mind that the way things
But
work
it would still be kinda
extends
cool
to large scale
to see what the
entities
art ship
like
looks like.
ships.
Your first
that
20
you can
minutes
see
in
from
Dual
much further
Universe.
away.
Yeah,
Here
it'll be a
again,
while
we
before we
can
start seeing those
replay
videos.
This frequency to
Yeah.
I am happy that they put out this tech demonstration, though,
if I get
because
further
this
away
is
from
like
the
the key
planet
piece
and,
to
put it
everything
in
that they're
bigger
trying to
viewful,
do. I mean,
you can see the players
yeah,
as they
like
get
there's
further
voxel games
away.
out there, there's
Now you
sci-fi
can see
games, there's
maybe,
sandbox games,
700,
but the
800
big
of them.
piece that ties it
And
all
all of them are
together
still
that can
moving
make
in the
everything that we want to do possible is their server
As you can see,
technology.
we can
And
have
so
a
this
very
should
high
put a lot
density
of
players in a continuous
it should
single
silence a lot of the
universe.
criticism,
This
although it will create
allows
new
us to
criticism
build a
because
truly
of the
massively
FPS
multiplayer
issue.
game where large-scale emergent
I'm pretty sure he
attractions
says
will
that
be
it's a pre-alpha
great.
demonstration, so
Thanks
we
for
can only
watching,
expect that they're
and don't
going to
hesitate to
improve
visit us on
the.
our website, forum,
frame
or
rate
devblog
issue.
for more information on this technology, and join
But
the
I
newsletter
mean,
to get the latest
it's-
news. See you soon in Dual
It is the most important video that they could have released.
Hey, so are we supposed to be leaving the audio for the video still playing in the background?
Is it still playing?
Hello, this is
Yes.
JC from Nova Quark.
Kill it,
How about now?
Kill it with fire.
Yeah, sounds good
Give
to
us
me.
30 seconds.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Yeah, sounds fine. Oh well.
Okay, good. I was just reading the comments and I'm like, that would be weird. And I checked it out. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, it's a good thing it's a slow news week. I don't think a lot of people are going to be watching episode 8.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, wait, we're saying that it's a slow news week, so we're happy that nobody's watching episode 8, but it's slow because there's nothing out there, and that makes no sense.
I think you're making it way more complicated than it should be.
Probably. I will go commit seppuku now.
No, it's just a slow week. Slow week. Not a lot of DU information. I guess if you're new coming into the game, you're kind of frustrated because it doesn't seem like we're covering a lot, and that may make it seem like there isn't a lot to cover about the game. But I think if you compile everything we've talked about for the past 8 weeks, there's quite a bit we know about the game. I made a post this week talking about my idea for an Alliance tournament. And when I say Alliance tournament, I was thinking of like the Alliance tournaments from EVE Online. But my idea was more of why don't alliances, like some alliances, come together and they will agree upon a set of restrictions for their ship. So we know ships have weight, and their ability to maneuver them will depend on their weight. And their weight is determined by the materials that are used to build them. And different materials are going to have different weight. They'll have different different stats behind them, and different materials might provide different things for your ship when you're building. But we don't know a lot about the details of what those materials are going to be or what they're going to do, but we do know that they're going to have an effect on your ship building. So why don't some alliances come together and they come up with some rules like, we're going to build a ship, or the restrictions for the tournament are that you have to build one ship that cannot exceed this weight, cannot use these materials, and cannot exceed these dimensions. And then the alliances, their best builders and coders all come together, and each alliance works to build the best ship that they can. And then we do a tournament where we do 1v1 and rounds of 3. Best of 3 rounds, 1v1, and then we do a ladder tournament. And then at the top, we are left with 2 alliances to compete. It's more of a bragging rights idea than anything. To be the alliance that says, we have the best builders and the best coders, and we built this ship that nobody else has ever built.
Yeah, that actually happens in real life too. They have 2 competing teams competing for one contract, and so I can imagine it happening. for many different reasons, not just like an arena style contest would be kind of interesting as well, but I can see certain factions saying, "Hey, we want somebody to design us a new fighter ship, so we're going to have a contest and see which one of you is best suited for the type of ship we want made." These are the parameters in which you have to build them in.
I think one topic. Now, correct me if I talked about this in the last episode. I don't really remember what we talked about in the last episode, but one thing I was thinking about this week, which I'm glad that I just now am remembering it, is combat and how we'll be able to coordinate fleets and what that's going to look like. So, what am I trying to cover here? In EVE Online, the big battles in EVE Online are like, what, 7,000 players? I don't think there's ever been a battle with 10,000 players in EVE, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, there's been a couple. Not many, though. It's only happened 2, maybe 3 times.
Okay, so in EVE, the way that they're able to handle that many players is time dilation. So it's not real-time combat in EVE. And the other thing about EVE is fleets in EVE, at least... And I know some people are going to disagree with me, but my general feeling about, being a fleet, what it takes to be a fleet commander in EVE, if I understand, is that in EVE, there's a limited number of ships. Whereas in Dual Universe, there will be tons, thousands, endless amounts of customized ships that people are building. Whereas in EVE, I don't know off the top of my head how many ships there are in EVE, but you don't see all of them all the time. There's something in EVE called a fleet doctrine, where after a while, the fleets all kind of seem to follow this pattern because they're the best. Oh, is best the right word to use here? They're like the standard fleets.
Well, they'll follow certain metas.
So
That's the way I put it.
So there's fleet composition in EVE, but you kind of, know what to expect just because of the mechanics of the game. And the other thing about EVE, the most important thing that I'm trying to get to is that in EVE, when you're looking at the field, you can zoom out your mouse, you can scroll it out, and you can see the whole battlefield. And you know where people are, you know where groups are. You can see everything around you just by scrolling out your mouse. And what I'm getting at is in Dual Universe, I read through the dev blog, an old dev blog, and I'd forgotten about this part, but the game is going to be first-person focused, and they're not sure that they're even going to have third-person mode. Novaraptor. Anyways, they're not sure they're going to have first-person mode, or third-person mode. So if the game is all first-person locked, if you were in a battle like in EVE, and there were 5,000-10,000 people in a battle, battles are going to feel and look much differently. Only because, if you're a fleet commander, if you're like an admiral of a giant fleet in Dual Universe, you don't see the whole field. You need intel from your ships in order to know what's going on the battlefield. And on top of that, the people in the battlefield might not know the ships that they're encountering. An alliance might pull some trick up their sleeve and unleash some ship that nobody's ever seen, and they don't know how it flies, they don't know what its weaknesses are, etc. So there's all sorts of unexpected elements that can happen in a battle. And being a captain in said fleet, if there's thousands of ships and you're an admiral trying to control, this hierarchy of captains below you, being a captain is a lot more than just flying your ship. In fact, it probably won't even be flying your ship. It's more of commanding your ship, commanding the officers on your ship and telling them where to go and making sure all your systems are running together, making sure your crew is working well, efficiently. But on top of that, you also have to get intel from the field, report it up the chain, and at the same time, be given directions on what to do. So there's a forum post up right now about fleet composition or fleet hierarchy, and there's a diagram that was made. I didn't make it. If somebody wanted to pull it up, I forget who made it. But somebody made a diagram that covers, their idea of what fleet composition might look like. And
I think Wilkes is the one that did it.
Okay, Wilkes, right? He's on mute right now. But it kind of
Yeah,
covers
it was no.
the hierarchy of what a fleet would be like. And at the top, there's like a flagship, and there's an admiral of the flagship, and then below them, there's other command ships, and each command ship has like a vice admiral, and then a captain below the vice admiral, and then each command ship is like in control of so many ships below them. But it really had me thinking today. I guess I was, or not today, but this week, I was daydreaming somewhat about what battles in Dual Universe will be like, and how, you know, when we hear about Dual Universe and we hear it compared to Eve, we kind of think about these giant battles of 5 or 10,000 players in them. What that would feel like in Dual Universe. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of going on a rant here, but I was thinking a whole lot this week about what combat is going to feel like in terms of giant battles like that.
You know, and that's I like that idea too. I feel like combat's going to be less organized than that though, because it really will take. I mean, the in order to have a well organized combat machine like that, where it's hold on, I can hear myself. No, in order to have that work, you have to have people that either know those roles really well, or people who know each other, or have played together pretty well, in order to make it move as fluidly as it needs to, in order for it to be effective in combat.
Well, it's kind of like,
Otherwise,
I guess the analogy to Eve would be, I remember being in Eve, and as a pilot in Eve, I didn't do much thinking about what was going on. My goals were listen to everything I was told to do, and select the person when told to select the person, and hit the button when told to hit the button. Really, you're human robots when you're in giant fleets a lot of the time. Like, you're not making decisions on your own. You are, being told what to do, but as a whole, if you have a fleet of 300 people, as a whole, if you're all doing the same thing, you are much more effective together. Just kind of what Fleet Doctrine was built around. When I think of Dual Universe, like, if you have a ship, battleship of 100 people, each person is not necessarily what's concerned about. Each person is not concerned about what is going on around them so much as what their specific role on the ship is. So the engineer in charge of the jump drive doesn't care what's happening necessarily on the bridge. He's being told to do stuff, and he knows he has something, some list of requirements, or like some checklist of the warp drive he has to check, or he's repairing something or doing something, but he doesn't care what the guy on the gun is doing. He doesn't care what the chef is doing, or the navigator is doing.
Yes, that's what I want my job to be on the ship. Ship cook.
Could happen.
yeah, no, what you're explaining is fleet command working at its best.
Oh yeah, it's going to take years for people to get refined enough to get to that point. But I mean, on day one, when we're all in space, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be very chaotic. But as the years go on, I think once the game evolves and people, what's the word I'm looking for? People
Refine, streamline.
streamlined, is streamlined the word? Yeah, streamlined. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. People will be more streamlined about what they're doing. Just like in Eve, I'm sure in the beginning days of Eve, there was no fleet doctrine in Eve. People were still tinkering and trying to figure out what the best of everything was and how to work together.
Well, it's funny how I look at that post, and yeah, I can see it being like that. I also can see it being. The thing is, how do I put this? In Eve, the way things work the way they are is because it's by far better to have somebody in charge with the way that Eve combat works than to have nobody in charge. Because if you've ever listened to some of these videos posted on their fleet battles and some of these guys that are in charge, you listen to them and go, wow, this guy really sucks, but at least it's effective because he's pretty much the only one doing it.
Or, wow, that guy sounds like an asshole. But everybody in the
Yeah.
game is just like, no, that's just how he is.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'd still say that's an asshole, but okay. Uh, but a lot of times, so I look at these things, and the way Eve Combat works is, you don't have to worry about a lot of the things like uh, flight crews, engineers, and such. So yeah, those things wouldn't even be part of the same command structures or part of the same lines of communication. The same thing will happen for Dual Universe. We'll find out exactly what we'll need in the fleet. Can I even repair things while under combat? Is it only going to be effective with having engineers are going to be only any good for internal systems that get damaged? Am I not going to be able to fix anything that happens on the outside of the ship? Can gunners switch positions in the middle of combat in case their gun system goes down? All these things will actually have relevance and meaning once we get to play the game and see how it all works. And if they don't have any meaning, then a lot of times we'll just be looking at it as like, we don't need to tell this guy to do anything because his sole job is to do this. As long as he does that, then he doesn't need any actual direction.
Yeah, I mean that's all good until he comes across something that he doesn't really know how to react to or hasn't thought.
My wife and I were kind of discussing this afternoon, too, and we were watching Wing Commander, and I was thinking space battle or space combat seems a lot like submarine combat. It feels a lot like submarine combat.
You watched Wing Commander? I'm so sorry.
Not a good movie plot-wise, or good movie in general, but
I think I lost brain cells watching that movie.
it was on a list of top 10 space battles in movies. Not a lot of movies with space battles. You'd think there'd be more.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting because it's not just on a simple plane of attack like you're saying it's kind of like submarine combat, but it's also like if submarines could fly.
And if you're the commander on a ship, right, and you're in first person mode, it is kind of like submarine combat because let's just say you're standing on the bridge of the ship. There might not be a way for you, not being the pilot, to zoom out and see what's behind you. So the only way to know what's behind you is if people are telling you, like, the way I envision my perfect idea of this game probably will be nothing like this. So anyways, the way I envision that is that there would be people who are in charge of sensors. There's like your radar people, the sensor people who are feeding that information to other people to tell them what's going on. There's your communications people who are doing the communications to other ships. Or maybe that's the captain. Maybe the captain is the one communicating with other captains. Yeah, I mean, I just see like your bridge being broken up into lots of different roles, and where the captain is not necessarily doing anything so much as making sure that everything is working together to get his ship to do what he is telling them to do. Go here, do this, shoot this. Go here, target this, shoot this. And kind of like on a submarine. I'm kind of going to relate this to like Das Boot or something. Not that I've ever been on a submarine, but I imagine that, the guys in the engine room don't care what's going on in the command room. They're being told what to do, but otherwise, their job is to make sure that the engines are still running at full capacity. And when the captain, says shoot or targets, he's not necessarily sitting in front of sensors, getting all that information himself. He's being told that by people who are the sensor people. And that's just kind of how I imagine Dual Universe will play out. It could be completely different.
I mean, if it does end up playing out like that, it would be a good thing.
It's an educated guess just based on what we know about the game. So can you imagine being a captain on a ship in Dual Universe? Because it's going to feel like the perfect sci-fi game. I mean, especially if they have VR support, like they're saying they want to do. You could possibly be standing in the bridge of your ship, looking out the windows at a battle taking place, and like ships flying past each other and explosions and whatever. It's not going to be like real time first person combat, but there will still be, clearly there'll be animations for all this stuff that's happening, so you'll definitely see something happening outside your ship. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a really cool experience when it does happen.
For sure.
If it does happen like that, I imagine that you know how they were talking about like a lot of the displays will be customizable through HTML5. I can see a lot of people being able to just sit there and go, well, I can't do my job as ship captain. Why? Because I can't tell what any of these freaking screens are telling me. It's just horrible. Who designed this?
Yeah, each ship will have its own. I mean, each alliance might even have its own special screens. I would have our screens in such a way that intruders might not necessarily know how to use our UI.
Oh yes, I can definitely see certain people getting a ship that they didn't design themselves and all that, and upgrading the display units and DPUs with their own software. You can have like the pirate fleets. This mishmash of different ships and all of them trying to run software that it works, just not very well.
Technically, it technically works.
You could sell software in the game. You could sell those interfaces, and then people might pirate your software.
By that same token, this is slightly off on a tangent as well. You were talking earlier about sometimes you might meet up and face off against another fleet and not know any of their capabilities. Well, you could just as often run into ships that are very popular, and you think you know their capabilities, but somebody updated their software so they handle differently now. We have a lot. There's going to be a lot of. There isn't going to be as much metagaming in this, I think. Which
is a good thing, because metagaming irritates me.
Well, what do you mean by that? Say that again.
So in like Eve, you had certain metas. So like nanoships, for instance, was a type of meta game where you built ships for speed, and all your tactics were wrapped around the idea that your ships were fast. So if you saw somebody that was moving in a ship that you just look at and you're like, oh, that's going way too fast. The only way to be able to do that is to say nano ship. You know what meta they're playing.
It basically makes it so that like just from seeing how they're maneuvering or how they're doing something, you basically know exactly what's in their ship just from seeing the movement, because there's no possible way that it could be anywhere any other way.
Is that the right term for that? I thought metagaming was more like the game that happens outside the game.
In a Dungeons and Dragons perspective, yeah, but if you're talking about like when people sit outside and
when people talk about metagaming, when people talk about metagaming in Eve, they're talking about like the forums and like the videos that happen outside the game, and all like the fun that happens outside of Eve is what makes Eve fun. Eve itself by itself.
Use it as the term. When I use the term meta, I'm using it as the actual gamer terminology meta, not the
game outside the game.
Not as a metaphor for or as the actual word meta multiple.
Because on the other hand, I guess in the other sense of meta, I think there will be tons of that going on in Dual Universe.
Yes,
the game outside the game.
I agree. But speaking from just like from the type of tactics that get used in Eve, you generally know what type of tactics somebody's going to use against you. If you have any real knowledge of the game at all. If I see a Minmatar ship, he's either coming at me with cannons or artillery. If he didn't put cannons or artillery as his weaponry system, he was a fool. That kind of deal. So if I wrap my brain around that idea, he's got, it's a Minmatar ship. He's got cannons or artillery. So I know what type of guns he can come at me with. He's moving this fast, so he's this type of build on his ship. Those are the types of tactics that you get to know in EVE. And those are the types of things that you're going to be much harder to determine in a game like Dual Universe.
I think one thing you will be able to determine in Dual Universe, and I haven't made a forum thread on this idea yet because I haven't fully fleshed it out, but it's the concept of different size ships are going to be put into different categories. Like at some point your ship is going to exceed a weight, and at that point it should be considered a different class ship because it requires so much power and thrust to move it.
So then what about things like carrier ships where they actually don't have, where their mass is large, but it's only because they have so much other shit inside them? Like, if I have a ship, let's say it's like, it looks like a standard size, not like a standard size, but like a ship that can have maybe a crew of 10 or 20 people in it. But instead there's only a few people manning the actual ship, and most of the people are actually in tinier, light fighters that are inside the ship, and then they can just drop out. I mean, then
I would think even then, like, what would determine that is, I mean, you would still need powerful thrusters to move it, even empty or fully loaded. And I think that when you talk about classes of ships, I think we'll be talking about the size of engine class that would be necessary to move it. Like when you talk about a Titan ship in Dual Universe, you're not talking necessarily about the size, like, you're not talking about like a Titan in EVE Online. So not like a Titan with a giant massive gun on the front, or a Titan that can't be a carrier or whatever. You're talking about a ship that needs the Titan class engine to move. I guess where I'm getting this is, like, when he talked about the space station in the game, they said something like it would need like 6 or 8 Titan class engines in order to be able to even push it a little bit. And so I would consider something of that size like a certain class of ship, because it needs so much thrust to be able to move it. So I think when we're classing ships, it'll be about how much thrust is required. Like if it's something that's so massive that needs a huge amount of thrust, like 30 Titan engines to move it, you might call it like the Leviathan class. So when you encounter a ship like that, you at least would be able to describe it to somebody else in short terms, like, yeah, I just saw a Leviathan class ship, something that has massive engines.
True. I think more of the classifications of ships in here will be more based off the roles that they accomplish and less on ship size and all that type of stuff. Utilizing terminology that we've come up with over the years, frigates, destroyers, dreadnoughts, battleships, carriers may not have as much meaning in a game where I can design a ship that acts one way in certain situations and can act in a different way in other situations. If I design a ship solely for planetary invasion, what do you call that?
I'd call it an infiltrator.
Well,
but there's already a ship called
you're
that.
thinking of it. Yes, but you're thinking about it in a certain way. What if I was thinking of a ship where when I deploy it, it's more like in Warhammer 40K, where you show up and the Space Marine chapter shows up and they just drop, their base of operations, their thing that
we call those drop ships.
Right, but it's just the way that it works out in a lot of these things. We can have a certain idea of how we classify things, but it's not going to fit as well into a game system where somebody can purpose-built a ship for a specific task.
On the other hand, I think that if we tell one of our builders, like, hey, I want you to design and build us a dropship, I think they'll know what that means, and those terms will still be able to carry over.
I agree. Certain things were, certain things are going to work out very easily. Make me a
Can
drop
you-
ship. Oh, you want me to make me a ship that can drop you into atmosphere with no problem? Okay, I can do that.
was watching Starship Troopers, and I think that in my alliance, if I get to this point, it'll be in order to earn citizenship, you have to serve in the military, and then all the new players have to be infantry soldiers. So we just land them on drop ships, and then they're just foot fodder.
I just have one thing to ask. Why are you watching all these bad movies?
There's not
It's
many
bad
good
movie
movies with like lots of space battles. I mean, even one of the movies that I thought had one of the best space battles was the opening of Star Wars Episode 2. Not a good movie. There's also Return of the Jedi, which you can only watch so many times.
My
Maybe-
favorite part is with the Ewoks.
Did you know that Ewok is not said once in the entirety of Star Wars?
Yep, it's a marketing term. Or they made it for the toys, I think.
Yeah, it's in the credits, but
Yeah.
not in the movie.
I think if you want cool space battles, you're going to have to watch things like, Babylon 5 or... not Star Trek. Star Trek has horrible space battles.
Yeah, but Star Trek, that's still a good show. I love Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, can you think of any movies that have lots of space battles?
Serenity?
So there's Serenity. Not a whole lot of movies.
Well,
Last Starfighter?
It's not the biggest... Yeah, that had a fairly big space battle. It's not the biggest space battle, but it's one of the coolest space battles. Wrath of Khan.
Yep.
Where it was just that cat and mouse game they were playing. That was a pretty good space battle.
Star Trek the movies have much better space battles than Star Trek the show.
If you Ender's Game,
Depends on how you feel about the movie.
I don't feel that great about the movie, but the space battles were actually, kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that. Oh shit, I'm trying to remember how they describe them in the books. I think I like the descriptions that they use in the books a lot, but seeing the battles were good. The rest of the movie was trash.
Yes. Well, interestingly enough, the way that space battles play out in Ender's Game is kind of the way I see Eve battles playing out. You got one guy who's pretty much in charge of everybody, except none of them are Ender Wiggin.
Well, what other ideas have you had in your head this week?
Well, getting along the idea of like purpose-built ships, I always thought it'd be interesting because recently I've been replaying the original Dawn of War games. I thought it'd be interesting, designing and building ships and constructs specifically for that type of planetary invasion warfare. You got the ship that shows up and it drops off, specifically the buildings that have medical centers and armories in them. You have another one that drops off a facility specifically for building land attack vehicles or some such. I always thought that would be an interesting idea to accomplish in game. I tried to do things like that in Space Engineers, and it works for all of about 30 minutes before I crashed the game with all those constructs.
I will
Yeah.
say,
Where everything just explodes randomly.
I am expecting Dual Universe to have some awesome battles, either land or space. I mean, even if it's a targeting-based combat system, like I still think that we'll see some awesome videos of invasions and all sorts of things. It'll be very haphazard at first, but I think a year, 2 years into the game, you'll see some awesome content. Not to say there won't be at first, just in terms of combat.